This is your USMNT Abroad weekend update from August 16th to August 18th of 2024. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to the US Men's National Team Abroad series, where every single Monday we update you on everything that happened with the Yanks abroad over the weekend. And let me tell you one thing, the return of this series is big, huge for sports in America. Some might say it's even one of the biggest returns in sports in America. Almost as big as that one time when Michael Jordan came out of retirement and he joined the Looney Tunes to take down the Monstars. The return of this series is massive, almost as big as that. Now, this weekend had a lot of positives and a lot of negatives that we're going to talk about throughout the episode. But what you can do right now to help the channel is smash the like button. It's a great way to help the channel for free. Let's try to hit at least 1,000 likes in this episode. And I also want to thank everyone that joined our Patreon, which is another way to support the channel, but that one is financially. So again, don't need to support it financially. The least you can do right now is smash the like button. Let's roll the intro and start the weekend recap. As always, we start with the top 5 leagues in Europe, the first one being the English Premier League. With that said, why don't we talk about Matt Turner from Nottingham Forest? And actually, there's not much to talk about there. Matt Turner is like the 3rd or 4th option in that team. The transfer window closes in roughly 2 weeks. It's time to find a new club, buddy. You need a new team, and preferably outside of the Premier League. I think it's fair to say that Matt Turner flopped in the Premier League. So go play in the EFL Championship or try another top 5 league. Or honestly, if you're not going to play at all or even make the bench, even go back to MLS. Regardless, Matt Turner is kind of like not really a Nottingham Forest player anymore. So let's skip Matt Turner and talk about Chris Richards, the center back from Crystal Palace. And on Sunday, Richards started for Crystal Palace in a back 3 and played the full 90 minutes for them during their 2-1 loss to Brentford. He wasn't terrible, but he was also far from great. I would say he was below average. He was meh. But he did have a good amount of blame in the second goal that they conceded. It was Richards and essentially the entire Crystal Palace defense that they were just slow, lazy, too casual. And I mean, it's not exclusively Chris Richards' fault, but he has a good amount of blame here. All I'm going to say is he can, and he most certainly has, to do better. Next up would have been Tyler Adams from Bournemouth, but again, Tyler is still injured and he's not expected to return this month. We'll be lucky to get Tyler Adams back in October. I would probably assume he won't be back till November. So let's skip Tyler Adams and talk about Anthony Robinson from Fulham. On Friday, Robinson started and played the full 90 minutes for Fulham during their 1-0 loss to Manchester United. Look, defensively, I thought Robinson was very good at the left back position. On the ball, he was quite poor for most of the game, or at least he was ineffective. That might be the best word to use here. But that's A-Rob, right? He's a very good English Premier League left back for a very specific way of playing. He's good defensively. He is also good on offense in quick transitions and overlaps to hit low crosses. He ain't great in tight spaces, and the first touch is kind of bad. But overall, he didn't have a bad game against Manchester United. He did his thing defensively, just struggled a bit on offense. And to be fair, Fulham as a team struggled on offense. The entire team. They were not good against Manchester United, and they deserved to lose. And they did. Okay, let's leave England and go to the spaghetti merchants, to Italy, to talk about the Americans that play in the Serie A. The first two being Musah and Christian Pulisic from Milan. And on Saturday, Christian Pulisic started and played 73 minutes for Milan during their 2-2 draw with Torino at home. This was their first game of the season in the Serie A, and I would say this was not a good result. As for Musah, he was subbed in the 73rd minute and he actually replaced Pulisic. Why don't we start talking about Christian Pulisic? And listen, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. And this was not a good season debut for Pulisic. It wasn't a disaster by any means, but far below what you would expect from him. he didn't really look sharp on the ball or comfortable with his back to the defenders. He did primarily play as a 10 with lots of freedom to roam in possession, but he was also defending very deep at times, almost looking like an 8, a central defensive midfielder in their defensive shape. Now, the first half wasn't too bad from Christian Pulisic. He also almost scored, but the second half was a pretty bad performance. I must say, playing next to Chukwueze doesn't really help much. The dude stinks. Like not literally stinks, like he's just not very good. I mean, he might stink, I don't know. I didn't really come close to him and like smell him, but he's just not very good. Now listen, I would blame Christian Pulisic's inconsistency on his performance, like the inconsistency that we saw from him last season. But to be fair, this was the first game of the season. There were issues in the Milan's midfield when it comes to ball progression. The team looked disjointed at times, and many players were far worse than Pulisic in this specific game. Now, these are not excuses. He wasn't great, but everything that I just said matters, and I expect Christian Pulisic to bounce back next week against Parma. As for Yunus Musah, I thought he was actually really good. I thought he played well in those 20 minutes that he came off the bench. He was subbed in when Milan was down 2-0, and honestly, he helped them rescue a draw. I like how aggressive he was on the ball. He also tried multiple long shots, which honestly, I think he should continue to do so. He's a lot better at it than people give him credit for. Eventually, he's going to score a banger. But most importantly, he provided an assist in the 96th minute to Okafor, a goal that tied the game for Milan. It was a wonderful cross by Yunus Musah, followed by a great finish from Okafor. Both of these players rescued Milan and helped them secure 1 point, which still was not a good result at home, as I said. But, you know, when you take into account how poorly this team played for 80 minutes and the fact that they were down 2-0 until very late in the game, I would say that 1 point was quite valuable, and Yunus Musah played a massive role in this comeback. Next up would have been Tim Weah and Weston McKennie from Juventus, but they played this Monday, so you know the drill. Comment down below, how did Tim Weah and McKennie do? And you may be wondering, didn't Juventus say they didn't want McKennie? And they did. Thiago Motta and Juve told McKennie, hey, you gotta get out of here. And then Weston McKennie said, no. And then they said, dude, you gotta go find a club, get out of here. And Weston McKennie once again said, no thank you, I'm not leaving. And then Juve was just like, all right, I guess you can stay. That kind of happens every season with Weston McKennie and Juventus. And then he comes in, he proves that he's worth it, right? That he's a good player, that you should keep him. And he becomes a key player for them every season. It literally happens every summer. So just to summarize it, Weston McKennie will stay with Juventus for now, like at least till the winter. I think he'll actually play very well for them this season. But anyhow, Tim Weah and Weston played this Monday. And then after them, the next players that we were going to talk about, or the following players, would be two of them. And it would be Tenor Tessman and Gianluca Busio, both from Venezia. But Busio is currently injured, so he didn't play for Venezia this weekend. And Tenor Tessman is kind of being kicked out of Venezia because he wanted to leave, and then his agent kind of messed up the deal with Fiorentina, and now Venezia doesn't want them. So Tenor Tessman was going to leave Venezia and go to Fiorentina, but apparently the agents couldn't close the deal. And then Venezia planned their season without Tenor Tessman. And this week, Venezia's sporting director Filippo Antonelli said, and quote him, not me, he said, Tessman is out of the Venezia project. It's been a difficult week. Try to understand me. I'm especially sorry for the player, for the situation he put himself in. Right now, he's off the list of players available for Di Francesco, but it's his choice that it's not up to us. So Tenor Tessman needs a new team as soon as possible. He will not play for Venezia. Now we have the Americans in Germany, and if you made it this far in the video, don't forget to drop a like if you haven't already. The first one being Giovanni Reina from Borussia Dortmund. And understand that the Bundesliga has not returned yet. It starts next weekend. So all the games that I'm about to talk about are from the DFB Pokal, the German Cup. And on Saturday, Gio Reyna stayed on the bench the full 90 minutes for Dortmund during their 4-1 win over Phoenix Lübeck in the DFB Pokal. Now, this was a team that is from, I don't know, like the 4th division in Germany, something like that, where Dortmund had a 4-1 lead with 30 minutes left in the game. I'm sorry, I want to be optimistic here, but if Gio stays with Borussia Dortmund, he might barely play again. And by again, I mean just based on the previous 2-3 seasons, right? And look, if he stays and he doesn't play, that's on him. The excuses of talking about the coaches, system, injuries, those days are long gone. If Gio doesn't play this season, it's 100% on him. Now I'm rooting for him, and I think he will find a solution or get minutes with Dortmund, but again, if it doesn't work out, it's on him. Next up is Giovanni Reina's best friend, Joe Scally, that plays for Borussia Mönchengladbach. And on Saturday, Joe Scally started and played the full 90 minutes for Borussia, not Dortmund, during their 3-1 win over Asbirge Aue? What the fuck is that name? I mean, Germans really need to get their act together and just make their language a bit easier. Like, seriously, just oversimplify it. What is that name? How am I supposed to know how to pronounce that? And this game was also in the DFB Pokal, as I said, as the Bundesliga starts next weekend. The other player I was going to talk about here is Kevin Paredes from Wolfsburg, but Wolfsburg plays this Monday, so you know the drill. Let us know in the comment section down below, how did Kevin Paredes do for Wolfsburg in the DFB Pokal this Monday? Last but not least, in Germany, we have Leonard Maloney from Heidenheim. And on Saturday, Maloney started for Heidenheim and played the full 90 minutes during their 4-0 win over 0-8 Villian in the DFB Pokal. So we're going to leave Germany and go to Spain and talk about the Americans in La Liga. The first one being Luca de la Torre from Celta de Vigo, and guess what? He was not even on the bench for Celta de Vigo this weekend. The new coach does not want him there. He is in the transfer block right now. So he will leave Celta de Vigo within the next 2 weeks, and we'll keep you all updated every Monday. So don't expect Luca de la Torre to play for Celta de Vigo this season. He is going to leave. So after Luca de la Torre, we have Johnny Cardoso from Real Betis. And on Thursday, Johnny started off the bench and was subbed in the 77th minute for Real Betis during their 1-1 draw with Girona. He did okay in those 15 minutes that he played. He had 2 long shots that missed the target, but he was fine defensively, didn't miss a single pass, and won pretty much all of his 50-50 duels. And don't worry, he is a starter for Real Betis, and he will be a starter for most of their games this season. It's just that the coach is old and ancient, and then sometimes he benches players randomly, and no one knows why. Next up, we have the Americans that play in France in Ligue 1. The first one being Pulisic and Balogun from Monaco. And on Saturday, Balogun started and played 69 minutes for Monaco. Nice. During their 1-0 win over Saint Etienne. Look, Balogun didn't play well. I'm just going to say it right away. It was a lot like last season. He had a few chances, some shots were blocked, he made the right runs, and he wasted a few good chances. Of course, that's what he did last season, and that's what he did this game as well. He did have a very good opportunity in the game early in the match, where maybe if he was a superb finisher, he would have scored. It was a lob ball where he hit it without letting it hit the ground with his right foot, and the goalkeeper made a good save, but the shot was also very close from the goalkeeper, so he could have done better. Again, it was very much like the same Balogun of last season, which wasn't great. So look, we're done with Balogun. Now let's talk about Caleb Wiley that plays for Strasbourg, also in Liga. And on Sunday, Caleb Wiley made his Liga 1 debut. He started and played pretty much the full 90 minutes as he was subbed out around the 94th minute during Strasbourg's 1-1 draw with Montpellier. Wiley mainly played as a left midfielder, left wingback instead of a left back. He was very high up the field down the left side, and he looked okay. He looked fine, which is good considering he's just 19 and he was making his debut in a top 5 league. He did fine. There's a lot to improve, but there's not much to criticize there. I thought it was encouraging. Now, the last player in France would be Mark McKenzie, and the American center back just made a move to Toulouse, and he didn't play for them this weekend, but even though he literally just arrived like 2 or 3 days ago, he made the bench. So that's quite encouraging. We'll be tracking Mark McKenzie every single weekend, and hopefully he does well in France because our center back player pool kind of sucks right now. We need more quality center backs, and hopefully Mark McKenzie does well in France. So we'll be rooting for Mark McKenzie this season while he plays for Toulouse in Ligue 1. All right, we are done with the top 5 leagues. Now we're going to go to the Dutch league, to the Eredivisie. But if you made it this far in the video, make sure to drop a random comment in the comment section of this video to rig the YouTube algorithm in our favor. It's called cheating, but if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So why don't we start by talking about the PSV boys, Malik Tillman, Ricardo Pepi, Serginho Dest, that is injured, so he's not available for PSV right now, and Richie Ledesma, that literally came out of nowhere and is actually playing for PSV. For now. And on Sunday, Malik Tillman and Richie Ledesma both started for PSV during their 3-1 win over Heracles in the Eredivisie. Now, Tillman was subbed out at halftime with no reported injury, and Richie Ledesma played as a right back and was subbed out around the 73rd minute with a reported injury, but he should be okay. As for Pepe, he stayed on the bench the full 90 minutes, and unless De Jong gets injured, it's going to be the same thing as last season with Ricardo Pepi barely playing. This game was early on Sunday and I didn't really feel like waking up for an Eredivisie game that early. So if it was the Premier League, the Serie A, La Liga, I would probably do it. But for this one, I didn't really feel like it. PSV was down 1-0 at halftime and Malik Tillman was subbed out. Which means even though I didn't watch the game and probably you didn't watch it as well, it's not very hard to figure out that Malik Tillman probably dropped a stinker in the first half. They were down 1-0 against Heracles, that is not a good team, and Tillman was the one that the coach chose to sub out. He probably didn't play well, let's be real. As for Ledesma, I heard he held his own just fine as a right back against, a bad opponent, so take that with a grain of salt. And Ricardo Pepi, I heard he kept the bench nice and warm. Just my opinion, I still think Ricardo Pepi should have seeked a loan. He shouldn't have stayed with PSV. So unless De Jong gets injured, the dude ain't playing. But that's enough for the PSV boys. Let's talk about the Americans that play for Utrecht, Taylor Booth and Paxton Aronson. And on Saturday, Paxton Aronson started and played the full 90 minutes for Utrecht during their 1-1 draw with Heerenveen. So Paxton actually had an assist early in the game and even scored a goal, a very nice goal, where he took on the defender and hit a nice shot with his right foot in the box. Unfortunately, that goal was called offside. I'm expecting a breakout season from Paxton. He's been quite good so far early in the season for Utrecht. As for Taylor Booth, he was subbed in the 90th minute and I got nothing to add there. Now we're going to have to head back to England to talk about the Americans that play in the second division of England, the EFL Championship. The first one being Josh Sargent from Norwich. And on Saturday, Sargent started and played 88 minutes for Norwich during their 2-2 draw with Blackburn. And let me oversimplify his performance. He had plenty of chances throughout the game to score, and he was a bit wasteful. The decision making was great, he was winning his headers, he was combining well, he even headed a ball that hit the post. He just couldn't score. The finishing wasn't quite there. He even wasted an opportunity where the goalkeeper was beat and he hit the center back from close range. Again, he was wasteful, but playing well, looking dangerous. And while I was watching this game, I just knew this mother licker was gonna score eventually. And he did. Around the 65th minute, Josh Sargent hit a powerful left-footed strike to tie the game for Norwich. A wonderful goal. And then a couple minutes later, he crossed a ball in and got the assist for Norwich's second goal. So 1 goal, 1 assist, and a man-at-the-match performance. If he does a bit better with his finishing and stays healthy, I'm predicting that Josh Sargent will score at least 25 goals in the EFL Championship this season. If he stays healthy, he could even score more than 30 goals. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit delusional, maybe not, but if you look at how many goals he scored last season while he was injured for like 15 or 20 games, he can 100% score 25 to 30 goals this season if he stays healthy. And that finishing has to improve a little bit. Next up, we have Brendan Aronson from Leeds United, or Leeds Red Bull United. On Saturday, Brendan Aronson started off the bench and was subbed in the 64th minute for Leeds during their 0-0 draw with West Brom. It was a horrendous game. No further comments. Next up, we have Haji Wright from Coventry. And on Friday, Haji Wright started and played the full 90 minutes for Coventry during their 3-2 win over Oxford United. And let me tell you, Mr. Clutch was back. You need a buzzer beater? You call Haji Wright. Haji scored a brace for Coventry, the first goal being a powerful header early in the game to give them the lead, while the second goal, Mr. Clutch came to action. It was in the 96th minute with his left foot on a 1v1 versus the goalkeeper to give Coventry the win. He had these late goals last season, remember, during their deep run in the FA Cup, and even for the US men's national team in the Nations League semifinals against Jamaica. The dude shows up late in games. I'm projecting 20 plus goals this season for Haji Wright in the EFL Championship. Him and Sargent are in this weird spot where they're among the best forwards in the EFL Championship, but it's kind of uncertain of how they would do in the English Premier League these days. With that said, this should probably be the last season for both of them. They need to go test themselves in a top 5 league. Personally, I think the perfect league for both of these guys these days would be the Bundesliga. Sargent has played there before, and he's a much better player than he once was when he played in the Bundesliga for Werder Bremen. So I think Sargent should go to the Bundesliga. And since it's a league that has a lot of games that are played in transition, on a counterattack, which is something Haji Wright excels, I think Haji Wright should go to the Bundesliga as well. But not this season, next season. Get 20 plus goals this year in the second division of England, then head to Germany if you can, or try your luck in the Premier League if Coventry or Norwich get promoted. Next up would have been Austin Trusty from Sheffield United, but he stayed on the bench the full 90 minutes for them this weekend, and I have nothing to add there. So let's skip on Austin Trusty and talk about Ethan Horvath, the goalkeeper from Cardiff City, and Luca Coleosho, the winger from Burnley, because they clashed over the weekend. And on Saturday, Horvath started and played the full 90 minutes for Cardiff during a 5-0 loss to Burnley. And listen, he conceded 5 goals, and he was terrible. He conceded 5 goals on an 1 XG on target. That means he was expected to concede only 1 goal based off the shots that Burnley had, but he conceded 5 instead of 1. He even scored an own goal while failing to stop the ball when his teammate passed it back to him. It was a disaster of a performance from Ethan Horvath. As for Luca Coleosho, he continues to play well for Burnley and even scored for them and played 84 minutes this game. Last but not least in England, we have Aidan Morris from Middlesbrough. And on Saturday, Aidan Morris started and played 68 minutes during Middlesbrough's 1-0 loss to Derby County in the EFL Championship. Still in the United Kingdom, we have Cameron Carter-Vickers that plays for Celtic in Scotland. And on Sunday, Carter-Vickers started and played the full 90 minutes for Celtic during their 3-1 win over Hibernian in the second round of the Scottish League Cup. Not the Scottish League, the Scottish League Cup. Alright everyone, that does it for today. And you may be wondering, what about the Americans that play in Belgium, in Mexico, Liga MX? Those are Americans abroad. Listen, the ones that play Mexico, Kate Cao, Alejandro Zendejas, Fidel Barajas, Brendan Vasquez, we will be covering them every weekend once Liga MX is back. Now, the Americans that play more obscure leagues like the second division of Italy, Belgium, we will cover them when something big happens. We will not cover them every weekend because there's only so many players we can actually track, watch, and give useful and relevant information. With that said, drop a like before you go. I want to thank you all very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the first US Men's National Team Abroad episode of the season. We'll be doing it every single Monday for you. Thank you very much everyone that joined our Patreon. If you want to join, the link is in the description. And that's all. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.